full conversation, but the phone gets thrown in.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. We got him back. Both Denny and Jerry were able to come back in the same clothing for this episode.
Yeah.
It's great to be back in the studio.
Yeah, and to honor them, we wore the same shirts too. I bet you if you compare the two videos, we look almost identical.
That's how skilled we are.
I didn't have a beard then, though.
I'm a little.
You know, I purposely
thinner.
didn't shave for 3 days to try to get the beard to be exactly right.
Yeah.
So what we wanted to do this episode is round up a bunch of viewer feedback and some questions, and just kind of go through them. You know, give you our point of view on it, and talk about what our listeners have left, or I'm sorry, our viewers have left. We always ask for your comments, and people have been commenting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to throw questions at these guys, random ones.
Any good stuff in there?
What year was Gerald Ford president? I'm just kidding.
70. Oh.
I have no idea. I'm only joking.
It was
It
early
was like
70s.
76, wasn't it?
I don't have any idea.
Yeah, he was before Carter,
Yeah.
after Nixon.
Well, in 73, it was Nixon. We were born during Nixon. And it was
Oh, yeah,
right
you
after
guys
that.
are the old guys turning 50.
So it's
That's
about
right.
75,
'Cause it
76.
was before
76 is right.
Yeah,
So it was
so
before Carter. It, was
77 to-
yeah, it would have been, yeah,
I don't
60.
remember who was president when I
So
was
60, 64, 68
Nixon.
was Johnson, then Nixon. Yeah, yeah.
born. Okay.
Good
So,
question.
I'm a
Good
bit of a
question.
nerd
so
on it, but yeah.
Yeah.
we started calling this episode, we're going to call it Unsolicited Answers to Unasked Questions. Just because I run across the same questions a lot on forums. One that I learned, one tidbit that I learned was, what can you do if you mill your grains and you spill them all over the floor?
Sweep them back up and put them back in.
That's what you do.
Because
Yeah.
you know why?
Why?
If I remember correctly, it's just going to boil.
Yeah. I mean, if there's any bugs on it, which, I mean, probably unlikely, you know, it's going to kill them in the boil. If there's any dirt and stuff on it, then that's just going to fall out in either the boil or fermentation. Really, if you got an oil spill in your garage and they go in there,
Yeah.
I'm going to sweep those up. And
So
use
when I
them.
first brewed with Mike, I wasn't sure if that was a saying that was just Mike brewing or just in general that, you know, well, it's going to boil out. So.
Yeah.
Well, in general, let's face it,
It's a
how much
fact.
dirt is really going to even make it out of your mash?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So-
yeah, should be filtered out. So, and I don't get credit for that solution. I heard that Denny Kahn suggested doing that on the AHA forums. So I had a lot of trouble not saying your last name. So let's see. So our happy accident or terrible mistake videos, what kind of inspired that question? And over on Facebook, one of our viewers, Daniel Flaherty, said that in 2014, I'd asked what disasters they had. In 2014, two friends and I were making 18 gallons of a Russian Imperial Stout at 1.104 using 30 and 50-gallon coolers atop two sawhorses. Sawhorse broke, crashing to the floor with one cooler intact, but spilling much of the mash into the second. Cleaned up, replaced the sawhorses, scooped up much of the grain using a snow shovel, added 3 pounds to get the gravity back up. Beer went on to win Kentucky State Fair 5 years running.
Wow.
Nice.
That's impressive.
So what I want to know is, do they have to repeat that process every single time to get that winning beer?
Well, they said it's won 5 years running.
Right. So like,
So
are
that-
they dumping and mixing and
I was
shoveling?
going to say, to me, that means the original bottles are still
Oh,
winning.
okay.
And either they
All
haven't
right.
tried it,
Oh.
they haven't tried it again, or their experiments have failed.
I really love to know if they've brewed it again and did they have to shovel it a little bit
Well,
to
I mean,
make it
there's a
work?
whole ritual there now.
Right?
There's
It's totally a
superstition
superstition
involved
ritual.
And,
Yep.
you know,
That would be
See that
the
recipe, you
kick
know.
the
Right.
sawhorse
Oh,
now.
what now? I got to dump it on the floor.
secondary. You know, make sure you shovel it into.
So another question I saw a lot lately was talking about repitching, reusing, or washing yeast. So do you guys, you buy a pitch of yeast from the store and throw it right in your wort, or what do you do?
So I'm going to tell you, as far as reusing yeast, I have some of my best beers, award-winning beers, in fact, have always been where I'll use the same carboy, right? I'll have a starter beer, whether it be just a blonde or a cream ale or a Belgian single. I've done this a number of times. You brew that beer, you end up with that,
Big fat yeast
cake.
cake.
fast
Yeah.
yeast cake at the bottom. Plan your next brew day for the same day that you're going to pull that beer out of that carboy, and just put your new wort right on top of that yeast cake. And I mean, your pitch rate is so high, and I end up. I mean, some of the best beers I've made have been done that way, and I intend to do that again a few times this next year. That's probably the only way that I've ever tried to reuse the yeast at this point, and I've done that multiple times. I've gone. In fact, the Belgian quad I won with last year at the Feast of St. Arnold's, I had pitched on that same yeast cake twice. Mm-hmm. So it was the third generation of that yeast, basically, when I won that.
Yeah.
Well, so 2 pieces of
I know a
advice
secret.
for that? Oh,
You know his secret? Yeah. No, that's his secret, clearly, to winning.
Yeah. So that's 2 pieces of advice. 2 pieces of advice about that method is, if you're brewing a really big beer, is he plans a beer that uses the same yeast that's roughly the same color, that's smaller in ABV. Because you don't want to throw the yeast into a really big original gravity. It'll kind of stress them out.
Right.
It's basically like a big starter, a 5-gallon starter.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you rack the beer off and you put your big wort. The problem is the big wort can take off. So make sure you have a blow-off tube.
Yep.
I've ruined a carpet that way. Luckily, it was in the storage room, so I didn't get in any trouble. You came close. Did you end up having blowout?
I did, honestly. In fact, with that quad, because I actually went a single, then a double, and then the quad.
Yeah.
And I fermented in this. It's like a freezer that I have under temperature control. And when I made the single actually required a blow off that I didn't have.
Oh, man.
And it was a big mouth, a little big mouth bubbler type lid, and it pushed that lid off.
Yeah.
Right. And it made a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, like the carboy, the outside of the carboy actually ended up with mold in it or on it after the fact.
Yeah.
But the beer inside was perfectly good. So I mean, knowing that I was going to put the new wort right on top of it, I couldn't very well clean out the inside at all. I did my best to clean out the outside. And put it back in, but with the double, I did put a blow-off hose on that, and with the quad as well. And it required it.
I was going to say,
every time it required it. Yeah.
Well, I did that once with a brown, and I brewed I want to say it's either a barley wine or a Russian Imperial Stout on top of it, and I had those little 3-piece locks, and it clogged the lock, built up pressure, and so anyway, I come downstairs and it was a mess. And one of them, I couldn't find it. And I found it later. It had broken on the ceiling into 3 different pieces, and it was all over the place.
I was waiting for you to say like a pencil stuck in the ceiling.
Yeah.
And then the other one, I was like, great, this one didn't blow off. I could see muck in it. It was clogged. It just didn't have the pressure yet. So I popped the cork, and it goes, Mount Vesuvius.
I think I did that for, I can't remember if I did a starter like that for the Black is Beautiful that we did. I know it came down and checked the bucket. It was fermenting in a bucket. Came down, the bucket was on the other side of the floor, just sitting there with the 3-piece things. We're like, what the? Who did this? I'm like, oh, wait a second. I was like, I just had this vision of like one of the kids coming down, like, oh, whatever. But yeah, it was weird. It must have. I wish you could have seen that. But,
okay, so that's a yeast cake. Danny, how do you reuse yeast at all?
I have not yet.
Okay,
I have not done that. I'm still, everything's a starter for me.
And Jesse, how about you?
I don't save yeast, typically.
Okay.
Just because I don't plan very well to be able to do that.
I think I'm in that club.
So it's just, like, I'm going to brew this weekend, and I just go brew. So I'll try to do a starter, but since I do a no-chill, it's easier for me to do starters, so I don't have to worry about timing as
in some of your previous episodes, it made me think about
doing a starter. Yeah. And of course, if you watch, that's usually what I do. Is I make a starter and I save some of the yeast extra, and then the next time I'm brewing a beer that needs that yeast, I grow it up in a starter. I have rinsed yeast before, and the way you do that is you ferment, take the beer out, then you dump some deoxygenated water in there and kind of stir it up. Dump that in a jar, let it settle. Dump some of that. I did it once or twice. I said, this is a pain in the butt. And then plus I heard that, and I think it was actually Experimental Brewing said that the yeast is happier and it'll stay healthier if it's being stored under beer, which the starter is.
It tends to make sense.
Yeah. So that was a lot of those questions. In our White Labs Pure Pitch episode, Mike M asked us, he said, great review guys, very informative. I have a question though. Besides yeast cell count, one of the reasons I do a starter is to have yeast that's very active and ready for more when I pitch it. Do you feel that aspect is important, and does this new Pure Pitch packaging make that a moot point? Also, move your mic. It seems like every time you touch the bar, it sounded like someone was having a party upstairs above you.
Well, they were, first of all.
So to that effect, Mike, we actually just got a mic stand to hold it, to keep it off the bar. So hopefully that fixes that.
I think it's...
Yeah.
You put your hand on the table a lot.
Yeah, Jesse does especially.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I've watched you do it all.
Yeah. But yeah, well, I always notice when he does, probably because I'm editing the video.
I like to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely something we wanted to address. So we have addressed it, I hope. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Right.
But as far as the active hungry yeast, what do you think?
I think it's important, and that's the one, and it's something I've thought about lately. Just when I'm thinking about dumping a beer on top of that yeast cake that's in the carboy, because that yeast isn't readily active. In fact, it's funny because I just went through this process, or this thought process, this last week. I even thought about next time I do this, where I dump the new wort on top of that yeast cake, maybe I'll dump a little bit. If I have some, maybe early in my boil, maybe even I take some out and cool some down to put in there ahead of when I'm going to put the rest of it, just to kind of get that yeast starting.
Yep.
I'm just thinking this through. I'm not sure.
Well, that's how John Landerman does it. In our yeast episode, yeast and starter episode, he takes a little bit of his wort, puts it in his starter, or makes a little starter with it, just his wort and the yeast that he's decanted, and that gets him going.
Yeah, because I do think it's important, and you'll probably get a cleaner fermentation out of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more than yeast cell count.
Yeah.
I mean, because the yeast aren't like, they hit the wort, they're like, oh man, I'm just waking up. These guys are coming out of the starter.
They're already
hungry.
going and they get more. It's a party.
Yeah.
So, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
You have an opinion?
No, I don't have an opinion, but I'm enjoying the animations of yeast waking up and then
my
getting
back.
going. Right?
Oh,
That's after several
That was over
generations.
here,
You're like,
yeah.
I can't wait till I divide. He's getting this half.
he's getting the back.
But so as far as the question, does the White Labs Pure Pitch Next Gen packaging beat that? Take care of the active yeast problem? I don't know. Like we said, so I mean the yeast performs super awesome, and I'm sure with the higher cell count, it's got to be better than the old packaging, and it's supposed to be an equivalent of some of the higher yeast cell count products out there. But the truth is, it's just out as a fresh packet. I mean, we've talked about when we see it in another format, we may buy one and store it until like right up to the expiration date, and then do a batch of beer with it and see how it performs there.
One thing I'll say, the Y yeast smack packs, I think that's part of what they're trying to get out of that. Is that when you smack that pack and when you're ready to pitch, it should be an active yeast at that time. Right?
I
At least
agree.
I think that's the idea. So.
Yeah. So, I tried the shaken not stirred method
Oh, yeah.
at one point, and it's supposed to be active when you pitch it, and I didn't really notice a difference with the final product.
Right.
Yeah, I did that
then-
also same thing. I did it once and I didn't notice any difference
Yeah, and
because
it was fine.
last minute.
It was just a little bit more work as far as I'm concerned. Just
Right,
because you had
it was.
to sit there and shake the crap out of this, the work to get the starter going. But I don't know. Your mileage may vary.
I think I did a shaken method with you. Are we heavy?
Oh, you mean shaking the carboy?
Oh, no. I get the yeast going.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah, I think that's what I
that
did.
makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. And if it I don't know. Honestly, I don't see that big a deal, because if it were a big deal, I would think the yeast manufacturers would be a little bit more emphasize
Yeah,
that.
they would adjust what
I
they're
think
doing.
the shaken not stirred is more to replace the starter.
Yeah.
So you
But
can grow it up. Yeah.
But you grow it up, and you're supposed to pitch it when it's at high closing,
You're right.
which is most active, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, I just know there's no lag time when I do a starter, or very little lag time.
yeah.
So I'll put the yeast in there, and it's like an hour. It's bubbling.
So now the starter, though, I don't want to go down the weeds too much on this, but with the starter and the active, I mean, if I'm doing a starter, I do the starter, then I cold crash it so I can decant and just get
Yeah.
the yeast. That's not active. That's dormant at that point because it's cold.
Yeah. See,
Yeah,
I don't
know.
I don't cold crash my starters.
Oh,
Yeah.
you just dump the whole thing in
Part
there?
for that reason.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about like stirring the starter versus just shaking it every once in a while, that's
Well, that's a different method.
a different thing. And I've been thinking about that lately too.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, and I need to go back and watch John Lannerman's yeast video that you all did. I know he uses that aquarium.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll put a link right
Oh
here.
yeah.
That aquarium
with
pump,
the
and he pumps
pipette.
oxygen into the starter as
Yeah.
it's going. And I just wonder if with a stir plate you get a good whirlpool, if that's kind of sucking oxygen into it as well.
So I don't think so. I mean,
No.
I don't think, because, I mean, you got it covered most of the time.
Right.
And it's got to have a bunch of CO2 in there.
Right.
And CO2 coming from the fermentation. Where John's method, he's pumping air directly into it.
Right.
Yeah. But so I will put mine in the fridge to decant it, but I usually pour the wort off of it and then set it on the counter and let it come up to temp.
Yeah.
They can't be getting too dormant because they take off as soon as I
Oh,
put
I
them
agree.
in the beer.
Yeah, so, and that's why I was wondering if pitching active yeast, where it's like, like, oh, it's high Croissant or whatever. There's still a Croissant on top. It's like, oh, dump it then. If that's, I mean, probably best.
Yeah.
But
Well, I just know
don't
that.
think
I mean,
that
there's a
important.
big difference between putting the pack in, straight in the wort
Oh, yeah.
versus a starter.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Although the pure pitch ones,
Yeah, that pure pitch
That-
one did amazing. Yeah.
put the
So
back
and
in,
that may be the case, but we're
Yeah.
kind of holding our decision on that until we've got
Yeah.
hold of some old yeast.
and just to kind of tag on to the pure pitch thing, I was just looking on More Beer, I think probably More Beer, the other day, and they've got a bunch of them.
Oh,
now.
ton of them.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's more than just the one or two. So
Well,
yeah,
I got a little more on that one actually. Is that where is it? Katie from White Labs had commented on that one and on that video, and she said that they would have their 2023 vault lineup out very soon. And I checked today, and the vault lineup is all going to be pure pitch next generation packaging, which I thought was interesting. I was going to read it off. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. I don't recall what they were off the top of my head now, but some of them sounded really good. That Lager X was coming out again.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, so if you talk to your local homebrew store, see if you can order them if there's one that interests you.
So yeah, just looking on More Beer right now, just really quick while we're talking. Looks like they've got
They got
13 of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no kidding.
So yeah,
I'll have to check that
Belgian
out. For sure.
wit and German Kolsch. And, so yeah. Might have to order some, or see if Tim can order some. For
Yeah,
us. I'm
well,
sure
I
he
bet you
can.
Tim will get them because
Oh,
that's
yeah,
all he
yeah.
orders is White
Yeah.
Labs.
Yeah. I'll have to keep an eye out.
So with all of our Kegland reviews, one of our, actually he's been a guest on the show, Steven. He said that he loves Kegland, and he recently bought the Brewzilla Gen 4 and the Wrap Pill. And I actually wanted to get him on the show, and I was talking with him last night, as a matter of fact. And he's waiting on, he hasn't been able to brew on his Gen 4 yet, but he's waiting on the wrapped temperature controller, and I was eyeballing that.
Ooh.
And it ties into a cloud service.
Oh yeah.
And the Wrap Pill, so it's basically like a ferment track in the cloud
Yeah.
that controls your controller, and you can set up a profile. So when that's available in the U.S., he's going to get one. I may get one, to be honest with
Because
you.
that's one of those, like, it's about yay tall, right? Is that
No,
one of
no,
those
no. This is
fermenta-
like an Inkbird.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They do have a fermentation chamber, the
chamber,
wrap
yeah.
chamber, and that's sweet. It's like
That's
$2,000.
Yeah. I
And
thought
it's
that's what
on
he's talking
sale
about.
right now, and it's like a 2-level,
Yeah.
made for all-rounders. And that thing's really cool. But the temperature controller itself is going to be for sale, and that ties into the
Okay.
wrapped web service.
Oh,
yeah.
interesting. I'll have to look at that. So is it only compatible with their product, or does it do tilt and ice spindle? Do we know?
I don't know. Yeah, I think the wrap stuff is what ties into it.
It's just the wrap.
I don't know. Maybe iSpindle can do it.
Yeah.
Someone could write some code. I don't
Yeah,
know.
they can. Yeah, well, it depends on if they have the. Yeah, anyway.
Open API.
Right,
exactly.
it's open.
Yeah. So anyway, but we're looking forward to seeing those and looking forward to getting Steven back on.
Yep.
Let's see. When we're talking about the closed transfer episode, which interestingly enough has been like our most popular episode. That thing is, a lot of people are viewing that one. YouTuber Jazzy Boy DC, he asked if you need to perform a closed transfer on all beer styles. I told him no. There's no reason you would avoid a closed transfer.
Yeah, couldn't hurt.
I mean,
for
I
sure.
wouldn't ferment every beer under pressure, like a Hefeweizen. You probably don't want to ferment that under pressure unless you want to kill all of the banana flavor.
Yep.
But you could certainly ferment it at 0, with no pressure on it, 0 psi or 1 atmosphere, and then take your spunding valve off and then do a closed transfer into a keg that stops it from being exposed to oxygen.
Yep.
Do you have to do closed transfers? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I heard hazy IPAs are really touchy with the oxygen. I don't know, I've never brewed one, but I've brewed a ton of other styles and never done a closed transfer, and they've been fine.
For the longest time, I just did a big siphon tube, out of the bucket and into a keg or bottles or something. I thought it were fine.
Well, actually, I'd do worse. I'd go carboy to bucket, and the sugar solution was in the bucket, and then bucket to bottle.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you do now?
Well, I keg now. So,
okay.
So I think the last 1 or 2 times, I don't want to go into long detail of how I ferment and all that stuff, but I'm doing closed transfers just because it's more convenient. I'll do the closed transfer from my fermentation keg into my serving keg, just so I can get my tilt and clean up that.
Well, then another thing I like about it is I have a chest freezer. So if I do a closed transfer, I can leave the fermenter in the chest freezer, for my fermentation chamber. I don't have to pull it out and shake it all up and everything. And you do that thing where and then you got to hit the lid with your elbow to get it to close. So you don't have to do any of that.
You're doing a closed transfer out of a carboy?
No, not a carboy, which is dangerous. You don't ever want to use pressure on glass.
No, I have.
Firmzilla. Don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah, a Firmzilla all-rounder. Yeah, they're cheap. They got a pressure set. They're awesome.
Right.
And they got a floating dip tube.
And if you drop it, you won't slice an artery open.
Right.
If you haven't heard us talk about it, I'll put a link right there to our Firmzilla tips and tricks. We might have another one about Firmzilla. Don't we? I think we do.
You were probably
If we
talking
do,
about
it'll be
pressure
right here.
fermentation.
Yeah.
I think a Mexican lager, maybe.
Yeah. So, let's see. YouTuber Joshua Pinter said, and this is about the closed transfer video, even better way to do this is making it a closed loop transfer by connecting the gas out of the keg to the gas in of the fermenter, which is just the gas line. But as the liquid fills the keg, it pressurizes the CO2 in there and pushes that out to the fermenter to displace the liquid going out. This saves CO2. It means you don't even need a CO2 tank / line nearby. Brilliant stuff. It sounds great. I'd have to see it. I've thought about, we're talking about trying it. I got a feeling it would stop flowing, but I mean, Joshua Pinter said that, and then Dave M said he was going to say the exact same thing. That's the way he does it.
Yeah.
So it's got to work.
I think if you have
Maybe start with high pressure in the fermenter.
Man, not even that. I think if you get it started with the fermenter higher than the serving keg, and just let gravity kind of do its thing, and then once it gets going, then you pop it on there.
That's true. And in which case, it's not so much that the gas is pushing it out; it's just that it's moving over there as the liquid comes out.
Maybe,
as he said, displacing it.
I think so, because as that's lowering, that's creating a vacuum, and that's pressurizing this, so it's
forcing it to.
So,
and Dave M said that the keg has to be lower than the fermenter, so that's more likely. It's just a siphon.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
But I do like the idea of not using the CO2. That's very cool.
Yeah. I wonder if you pressurize up to like 120 psi,
it'd be done
they'll
in
make you go
10
faster.
seconds.
So, how did Mike die again?
It was a sad day.
Keg lid right to the forehead.
So then our homebrewed peach kettle sour with the Philly sour yeast, which these guys, you probably saw them were on previously with their Philly sour yeast episode. MD Spider, now this one has me interested, mentioned he made an apple mango Philly sour hard cider that his friends love. He shared the recipe. It's 2 gallons of Kirkland mango juice / puree. I think he says that because I bought them and they're really, really thick. And he says it's very pulpy. And 2 gallons of apple juice. It ferments for 30 days, and then he adds a half a pound of dehydrated mango slices in secondary.
Oh.
I bought all this stuff. I'm gonna make it.
Try it?
Yeah, I'm gonna try it for
I
sure.
look forward to trying it.
Yeah.
And then No Chill Experiment #1, American Pale and Scottish Export. A local guy, Ryan Hannigan, he left a comment, said he'd like to see some parts of the brew day and the no-chill technique we used. I thought we actually included some video of the no-chill in there. I have included it since in different videos, but Ryan's definitely right. We're trying to get a lot more B-roll footage out there, so you don't have to look at these ugly mugs. You can see some pretty pictures.
Yeah.
Not these ugly mugs. These ugly mugs.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then finally, got two last bits. YouTuber JC Insaniac said he uses a sous vide probe in the open keg. And this was the corny keg conditioning, did I say that? Huh? Sous what?
So, go ahead.
I think it was sous vide.
Sous vide.
Sous vide?
Sous
Okay.
vide.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
barely know
Yes.
English. That's French, ain't it?
Well, it's one of those things. It's a sealed system. You can like cook meat and stuff.
Yeah, I know
perfectly.
exactly what
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
I just didn't know how to
Sous vide.
pronounce it. Sous vide?
Yeah,
Okay.
sous vide.
A sous vide system.
Oh,
So he puts it in the open keg, sets it to 175 for an hour to soak
trying to think this
with
through.
water, I assume. Or he adds some PBW. He put PWB
PBW.
to that to wash it out. That was really hard because that was like peanut butter. No, but PBW to that to wash it out. He does the same thing for plastic fermenters. So basically, he uses the sous vide thing to keep it nice and hot so it cleans the keg.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I see what he's doing.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's
Oh,
more
so
of the
just-
temperature.
Yeah. So basically, he keeps it heated for a
Yeah,
long
because
period of time.
you're boiling water when
Yeah.
you're making it in a sous vide. Like you can put like a beautiful steak in there, and then
Yeah,
and it
freeze-
boils. And it,
yeah.
it's in the
in a
sealed bag.
vacuum seal bag.
Yeah, but then it cooks it to the perfect temperature. Then you just sear it, and it's like
Yeah.
perfect, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then our bowl ITAP Common Era Brewing said, "Great video. I actually really appreciate you showing all of the hiccups, spills, tripping while leaning over the kegerator, etc.
You're welcome.
So many of the BrewTuber videos are so polished that it can feel like I'm the only clumsy, forgetful one.
You
Yeah,
want unpolished videos?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
You're at the right place.
If you want the
Watch
warts
some
and
of our
all,
videos, yep.
yeah, you want the warts and all, you're in the right place."
you have a home.
Yep.
So yeah, no, that's. I think we kind of did. I think you even said at the time, like, "Oh, I'll cut that out." I was like, "No, just leave it. I don't care."
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I messed up. I put it in or put the thing in a pressurized keg.
There you go. Yeah.
You know,
Made it
happens.
rain.
Yep. I was like, yeah, I got beer on me. Yeah, what
Well, I
could be
mean,
worse, you know?
realistically, we started this because, I mean, there's so much to learn, and I mean, you don't just learn from successes; you learn more from mistakes.
Yeah.
And I mean, if we brew a beer and bring it out here, you've probably seen us be critical of our own beer. That's because we're learning, and we hope you're along for the journey.
But to be fair, some of those mistakes are really fun stories later on.
Oh, yeah,
it was
yeah.
it was only last month where our friend Axe, Mike Bordick, he was over at our place. He was helping a friend of mine who was just starting out brewing. It was only like his second brew.
Yeah.
Actually, it was at Dave Wilcox's house, I
Yeah.
believe, and he was doing a brew in the bag, and they were trying to pull the bag out, but they were trying to let some of it drain, and they were having just problems trying to get the wort out of the bag because the bag had been used, and it just wasn't draining like a normal brew in the bag system would, right? And they had a colander sitting on top of the pot, but it was just barely hanging there. And Axe, who was a great brewer, he's been brewing for many, many years, and lots of awards. I mean, he wasn't brewing that day, but he was helping Bobby out, and they're both leaning over at this pot, and that colander slips and falls and splashes this hot wort right up into
He gets scalded.
No,
He
but he was
scalded.
covered. He was
But he
definitely.
had all this
I got a
dark
great picture
wort
of it.
because this was a stout, and so
Yeah.
all this dark
Yeah.
wort
Oh,
over his
no.
face, and we took some
Toes,
pictures.
clothes
Maybe I'll send you a
everywhere.
picture, and
Yeah.
you can get that picture
I saw
on this
one
video.
on Discord. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one. I
Okay.
posted,
Yeah. I'm just
Yeah,
glad
he
he
was
didn't
just
get scalded.
coated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I think there were small
you
enough
get some-
drops that it wasn't too
you get some,
bad.
and
but
he,
still.
he laughed about it, and Bobby felt bad, but he
Great
learned.
story.
They all learned, and it's fun.
The time I splattered Axe with beer.
Yeah.
At work,
No
yeah.
kidding. Yeah, but I mean, like, great stories. They're learning experiences. They're interesting things, and that's kind of why we started I started the happy accident or horrible mistake episode, because I mean, sometimes you forget something or do something you shouldn't have done, and you get surprised. Like his award-winning accidental sour, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
was a
nobody's perfect. We're not pros. Even pros dump beer.
Yeah.
Or well, some of them don't.
I could think of a couple that are.
Yeah, some of them should, but
Yeah, never mind. We'll just moving on.
So, you guys got any feedback or questions we can answer, or anything you want to say before we cut out of here?
I don't know. It's neat to be behind the scenes, behind the bar.
You've been on before this last
Well, that's
episode,
true. But
I got questions about
coming back. It's
Yeah.
kind of weird to.
I got questions
to be here
about what's
again.
behind this bar. That's
there's
that's
all
a great
kinds of
mystery for all the viewers. And
Right? There's a handle here, a thing that doesn't come out, and I'm kind of curious if it's like a secret identity. That
Well, what's
does
cool
something.
is Jesse has a button that if he hits the button, a gun pops up and he can grab it and shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to tell them that.
Yeah. I'm not telling them where it is.
Oh, okay.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
And if they hit the wrong button, it'll be the shotgun that swings out from the bottom. And they're
Right.
standing in exactly the wrong spot.
Just don't tell them about the
Gotta jump.
ejector seat.
Yeah.
Right?
So, well, hey, thanks for being on again,
No,
guys.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Our viewers, thank you for giving us feedback and questions. If you have anything, send it down there. We'll answer anything we can to the best of our ability.
Keep them coming.
Yeah. So, till next time, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks.
We all drank our beer already. You're too much talking there.
Thanks for watching our video. Check out our website at coloradobrewtalk.com for more great content.
While you're there, be sure to leave us a comment or drop us a line with your thoughts.
You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at CO Brew Talk, or follow the links below. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any future content.
Or episodes. As the case may be.